Look, I live in a house with 3 other people. I needed quiet and I needed to talk about a book. So we're on a walk together today. Hi, it's me, Melissa. Welcome. Maybe I won't get the quiet, but at least we're going to talk about the book. Welcome to G's Journals. Today I'm going to be talking about The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. I was attracted to this book because it was on sale for $1 at my library's book sale. And anything for $1 is going to pique my interest. And on top of that, I heard a lot of people talking about this book, saying it was pretty good, and it kind of showed them how little lives were important, and I thought it would show me that. It didn't. But I've got some notes here. I'm going to give you some facts on the book, and we're going to go over my breakdown. It was originally published September 23rd of 2003, so it's been a while since it was originally put out. It's a contemporary fiction, and there is actually another book in the series. It's titled The Next Person You Meet in Heaven, which is from the perspective of the girl that Eddie, the main character, saves through his death. And I will not be reading that one. I just wasn't interested in this one enough to follow on with the second. But, you know, if for some reason you enjoyed the first, well, I probably shouldn't say if for some reason you enjoyed the first, but if you did enjoy the first, well, now you might know there's a second. I got to give you a disclaimer. We're going to be talking about spoilers. If you don't want that, why did you click on this review? If you don't want it to be spoiled, stop now, go read the book, come back, I'll still be here, or find a review for a book you've already read. Thanks for stopping in though, that was nice. Otherwise, let's proceed. Here's my 1-minute synopsis so that we're all on the same page in case you've already forgotten what happened, starting now. Eddie is a grumpy old man. He works at an amusement park as a mechanic. He keeps the ride safe, makes sure no one dies. But he does. He dies trying to save a little girl from getting crushed by a ride. He awakes in heaven and discovers that he has to go through 5 different levels of heaven in order to get to his final personal heaven. He learns 5 lessons along the way. First lesson, strangers are just family you haven't met yet. Second lesson, sacrifice is not just for suffering. Third lesson, all parents mess up their children. Fourth lesson, love is never lost. And fifth lesson, all wrongdoings are eventually evened out with time. That one I'm still shaky on. The lessons were very confusing. It was a very emotional ending. All is forgiven and Eddie reaches his final heaven where he can dance with Marguerite for the rest of his life. All is right in the world in this book. Yeah, that's that. I think I did that under 1 minute. Genuinely, which I don't think I've ever done before. All right, if you don't know, I break books down into 4 categories: character, readability, plot, world building, and spice. But there is really no spice in this book, so I'm taking that category out for today. So we're just going to be doing 4 categories and going based off of that. Wow, this sun is really, it's killing me, but I'm going to survive, you know, soak up the vitamin D. There's so many things I could say there. Anyway. Okay. So let's get right into characters and character development. We met a lot of people throughout the story. Although we are mostly following Eddie's storyline, we also meet a lot of his family members, his friends, his co-workers, and every character you meet, even if it's for a short amount of time, you get to know them and kind of understand like major portions of their character, which was nice. You're not always with side characters as they develop immensely, but for Eddie, you know, we do see him go through many changes and many things. So I wasn't ridiculously impressed, but I also wasn't disappointed. So overall for characters, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Moving on to readability, this was a harder category for me to rank because the writing was good. You know, it was easy to understand, short and digestible chapters, left room for my imagination to play, and the use of multiple POVs was pretty immersive and showed us how even the smallest moments of a person's life can have an immense impact on the lives of others, which I think was the overall message for the story. So the writing was great, but it was dampened by the unhealthy biases and like ideals that kind of crept their way into this writing. For example, there was a lot of body shaming and fat phobia within the writing. One quote that really stopped me in my tracks and I had to make a note of to talk about in this review is this one. A tent flap opens. Eddie and Joe look up. There is a grossly fat woman and a shirtless man with reddish hair covering his entire body. Freaks from the freak show. When I read this, it was really jarring because it didn't feel necessary to the plot. It could have easily been removed and the main plot would have remained unaffected. This actually made me think of the book When the Tides Held the Moon by Vanessa Kelly, where I felt that she managed to describe characters who lived and worked at an amusement park in a sideshow without being derogatory and without being disrespectful to those characters. And even in the book When the Tides Held the Moon, if a character used derogatory terms, it was in a way that we were supposed to interpret as negative, or we were supposed to interpret as the character is wrong or evil for this. But in the 5 people you meet in heaven, it just felt like disrespectful, and it felt just used to be heard and appreciated. I believe that in an art form, especially one like storytelling, an author can write a character that incorrectly or disrespectfully uses a word to create an opportunity to address the proper way that that word should be used or not used. I recognize that adding derogatory language to a story can create a learning opportunity. Do I think that that should be used willy-nilly? No. Do I think that slurs should be input in writing by people who are not a part of that community? Absolutely not. And so, Mitch Albom's writing is good. I can't deny that. But his personal biases leaked into the story and it took away from the reading experience. It didn't need to be present. It could still be removed now, and the story would remain intact. So because of that, because of the word choice, my overall score for readability is 3 out of 5 stars. Moving forth to plot. You would think it's going to go up from here, right? Don't get too excited. We're going to start with plot progression. That is how we moved through the story. And the first chapter is basically just a countdown of moments until Eddie's death. Yeah, it literally goes almost minute by minute, counting down where he is, what he's doing, who he's talking to, and how he's getting closer to the final moment of death. And then the remaining chapters after his actual death are just significant moments along the way to his final heaven. For example, one of the chapters is titled The Journey to Heaven, and then the next chapter is The Arrival to Heaven. And then the following is the first person Eddie meets in heaven, the next is the second, and so on and so forth. It does make a very straightforward path to his actual completion of his journey throughout heaven. And each chapter ends with a memory from Eddie's birthdays, which I actually really enjoyed. It starts with the moment of his birth from his father's perspective, and then progressively makes it to his last birthdays just before his death. And I thought that was a cool addition because we could see how his birthdays were very different throughout his life. Some were beautifully sentimental, others were very sad, others were, quite angry. And me as a person with rocky birthdays totally felt seen there. So I liked how the plot progressed, and I think Mitch Albom did a good job at setting the pace to where we didn't get too much at once, but we also didn't get too little. All right, moving on to the plot itself. Not the progression, not the pacing, the plot. I think the choice of subject matter for some of these lessons that Eddie experiences throughout his time in heaven were a choice. So the 5 lessons that he learns, I'm going to go over again. First lesson is that strangers are just the family you've never met. Essentially, love thy neighbor, treat others the way you want to be treated, don't misjudge. Great, approve. Lesson 2, he learns from an old captain that he used to serve in the military with that sacrifice is not just for suffering, that sacrifice can be done for a person's benefit or the benefit of others. And essentially that sacrifice is not a waste, which was rocky, but I approved it. I was like, you know what? I can see the thought. Great, we'll go with it. Lesson 3 is where Album lost me. In lesson 3, he meets with the inspiration for the amusement park that he works at, Miss Ruby, and she tries to teach him that all parents mess up their children, which, like, yeah, true fact, we get it. But it was the way that Album tried to convince the audience, me, that it was all right for parents to mess up their children because it eventually helped them in the end, that pissed me off. Eddie's father is clearly an emotionally immature alcoholic who doesn't know how to raise his children and understand them on a person-to-person level. Eddie's father chooses not to talk to Eddie after he returns home from the war severely injured and mentally just out of it. And Eddie's father feels justified in not speaking to his son because, what reason? His son got injured, his son disappointed him, he didn't know how to communicate with his son. It was unclear, and his father just disrespects Eddie at every turn, doesn't talk to him, gives him the silent treatment, and doesn't allow Eddie the space to process his clear trauma. And in the way it was written, the chapter seems to give Eddie's father this ultimate pass of forgiveness. Like, you can say and do whatever you want, and Eddie will love you regardless. Eddie has to forgive his father after all his immaturity and emotional unavailability because Eddie's father is his father. And I was like, what happened to accountability? What happened to hello?
How are you? My name is. What happened to that?
It was outdated. It was bored. It was So hated lesson 3. Lesson 4, where he meets with his wife and she teaches him love is never lost, even through death, even through anger, even through, sadness or distant separation. Love is never lost. I loved that. I loved the way that the romantic aspects of their relationship were described and how Album described them like nurturing each other's spirits. Beautiful. But then I got to lesson 5. And in lesson 5, I interpreted the main message, as all wrongdoings will even out over time. Something just felt wrong about this. Let me set the scene. Eddie reaches another level in heaven. He's overlooking this cliff. He sees a bunch of children playing. There's one girl on the side of these kids playing. She's sitting on these rocks or something. Eddie goes up to her and she's trying to speak to him in another language. He can't understand her language, so in their infinite time in this realm, she starts telling him, this is my ears, these are my eyes, this is my nose, this is my mouth, whatever. And they kind of learn each other's language. And then at a certain point, she tells him, you burn me. You make me fire. First off, what a plot twist. The way that my jaw dropped open, Album wrote that. I did not expect that. I did not expect her to be his lesson because we didn't know she existed. We didn't know that he killed her. He murdered her when he was burning down the place where he was imprisoned. And at first, I really hated the idea that he killed Tala and she had to console him for murdering her. But as I reflected on the chapter, I realized that Eddie had to confront the responsibility of killing her, and he had to confront it to her face in the open, and he had to address his role in that. And on top of that, whether knowingly or unknowingly, Eddie did spend the rest of his life making up for that decision. I'm still 50-50 on it because, like, you killed her. But he did try to go into the burning building and save this shadow that he saw was in there. Yes, he was stopped from making his way in there and quote unquote saving her. We don't know if he would have been able to do that. But it just felt so, ugh. Why should she have to show him such compassion after literally ending her life? Why should he get to live this whole full life and she couldn't do that? And why does him protecting all these other kids make up for her death? Like, I don't know how to describe it, but something about that just pisses me off. I just remembered that I forgot to mention Mitch Albom using the near sexual assault of his wife as a moment to show loyalty between Eddie's father and his father's friend is crazy. The man is unwell. Overall, for plot, I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. And I feel like that's being generous because while you can take good things from a bad story, while you can take lessons from outdated stories, I'm like, the book can be revised. The man is still alive. Moving on to world building. Albom's concept of heaven is fun to think about. I did enjoy the idea that everyone has to reconcile with the actions that they've taken throughout their life before they can make it to their heaven and enjoy the individuality of that. I don't like the concept that when we die, we all go to the same place and we just enjoy the same beautiful experience. I don't like the concept that someone can repent at the very last moment and just live in grandeur and peace if they had a horrific impact in their living and walking life. And so I was drawn to this book because of the new concept on heaven, and I enjoy the idea of ascending after you transition into death and having to work through the left behind emotions from your life. I also enjoyed and really actually appreciated the space that Mitch Albom left for my imagination to fill in the gaps in between his writing. He didn't overly describe things, so I was able to create portions of the world for myself. But I did laugh every single time when Eddie or another character was supposed to be swept up into the ether to move into another lesson. I just imagined the Lorax in that scene where he floats off into the sky and the kid is just watching him float. I couldn't get that past my mind. Overall, for world building, it got my highest score of a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Just because, look, he gave me free rein to think, and I was like, all right, love that. With all that being said, my overall rating for the 5 people you meet in heaven is 3 out of 5 stars. It's not great, it's not bad, it's not great, not bad, okay? But to summarize my thoughts, I'm gonna read my review from Storygraph. I wouldn't unread the 5 people you meet in heaven, but I wouldn't read it again. It's a deeply emotional and thought-provoking read, but the bones of the story are problematic. Many of the 5 lessons are based on outdated ideas of family and loyalty. So the lessons end up feeling like excuses for unacceptable behavior. Let's be clear, nothing justifies child abuse and or sexual assault. What am I left questioning? I want to know if Mitch Albom has went back and made any commentary on how this book has aged and how the ideas may have been problematic. I tried to find interviews of him talking about the book in the recent years, but all I found was promotional spots from the original publication of the book and a very, very weird YouTube channel where he has the original publication videos and then a bunch of other things that I'm not sure if it's really his account or if it's someone else's account. So if anyone knows if he's addressed this, please let me know in the comments. I actually am like really interested in finding that out. As far as a lesson I'm taking away that I want to apply in writing my own book, I need to address and heal and work on my personal biases. so that I don't let them leak into my writing. I think writing is a two-way mirror. Whether you know it or not, the things that you make your characters do, the things that you make people say, and the places they go and the world they live in is all a reflection of your own mind. And the biggest flaw with The 5 People You Meet in Heaven was that Mitch Albom didn't seem to address his personal biases. So my takeaway from this is, got to do the work, understand the mind, and be honest about your impact. Overall, that's it. I don't want to do an icks and top picks on this book because I feel like I already got my icks and top picks out. If you're here, if you watched, if you made it to the end, thanks. Let me know what you think if you've already read this, and if not, if you haven't, you could pick it up if you want to. Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Yeah. You can pick it up if you want to. If you do end up picking up this book, please let me know. While there are very problematic things about it, I do think you can learn from things that are incorrect. And if you feel it's worth your time, give it. And let me know what you think. I appreciate you for being here. Was it a rant? Did it turn out well? I don't know. Did the cars overpower my voice? Probably. But we did it, and I'm proud of myself, and I'm proud of you. Thanks for being here, y'all. I'm tired. I'm ready to go home, and I'm so done with this book. I'm so glad I don't have to look at it or read it again. Gosh. Peace. Love ya.